LGBTQ editions. Today's guests are Sonia Rutstein and her wife Terry Irons of Disappear Fear. We were talking about how long we knew each other, and yeah, it's a long time. 30 years.
Couple days.
30 years. I mean, even for Sonia to be out there with such longevity, I'm just, awed and grateful that you're out there doing this. And thanks for always coming out and keeping up with this. That's real stamina.
Thank you. Well, it really would be nothing, like unless there were people that were interested in it. So as long as there's some interest, it's oxygen.
That's a really cool thing. And so, like for Piper and I, we've been in this business since 2003. And we are a service business, and we just interviewed a couple this morning that are also in a service business. It's a very different sort of situation where Piper and I are sort of managing this business together, and where the couple this morning was, they brought their partner in later, and it's definitely like that person's, the business along with their partner who comes in as support. And there's lots of different ways to, create and run a business. And I did some quick interviews with some couples that were in business. And what I noticed is about the 7-year mark, they stopped being in business together. Now, the couple I interviewed today, they've only been at it for about 3 years, even though they've had other sort of side businesses like real estate. They own property together. But this particular business, they've only done a couple of years. And so I'm super interested. They're getting close to retirement. I think it might be a 7-year thing where they just need to just close down the whole thing. But, right. And so you two have had more than 7 years. And so...
26 years working together and being together.
That's amazing. Just being together for that long. And then second, being in one business for that long. And then like on top of that layer that is just extra special is that you're providing this a different sort of service. Like it's not all Terry's effort. It's not all Sonia's effort. It really does. The core is what Sonia is, right, and provides. And so that's an interesting business model, in essence, to be in. And so I'm going to start a little bit by asking you two to describe the business that you're in, because what we do is most of the time is trade time for money. And to some degree, you have a little bit of everything in your business. Time for a widget, money for a widget, money for time, or money for an experience.
I'll let you go first.
Well,
yeah, like how would you describe your business?
Well, just historically too. Yes, we have done this for 26 years, but there were 7 years actually before that with me and Cindy. So when Terry and I started working together, Terry had already done a lot of other businessy kinds of stuff, and I am not businessy at all. I mean, I'm just sort of like, what's for dinner? I mean, I'm not terribly like that because obviously you have to plant seeds, literally and figuratively, but there was a business, and I did have ideas about that. And when I worked with Cindy before Terry, it was a very like, we're going to do that no matter what. And whether that meant like whatever that was, we were very outrageous. And we really were quite successful in that first 7-year period. And then, of course, Cindy retired to be a mom full time. And I was really spinning. I was really lost puppy. And then when I met Terry again, Terry and I had already met many years before that. I was just always in awe of her command of whatever project she was doing. Whether it was Atlanta Pride or it was, turning around gay rights or the lack thereof in a certain state, to get some legislature through that didn't, diminish our population, or whatever. So I was always like, wow, this person can handle anything. And she also seemed like the most like philosophically and spiritually, I was always very, not to mention that when I first saw her, this is going to be longer than 25 minutes. I think we're going to go to at least 26 just on my answer alone. But I will shut up. I'll tie this up. When I first saw her and I was playing and I didn't know who she was or anything, and this is 1989 in Knoxville, I was like, I have the best job in the world. Like, I get to sing to this person and she's smiling at me like, oh my God, I can die tonight. So, so somehow she'll probably talk about that, like, 10 years, well, not quite 10 years later, but like 8 years later or something, we fell in love and I was already in like, wow, but it was never right. And I did. We were on a Ferris wheel and I asked her to manage me. And she was like, I don't know anything about this business. And I was like, you'll learn. So the first couple of years, I think she was listening to me more because I was like, I could kind of get her to do what I wanted her to do because she sort of had a little bit of insecurity because this is a music business. And she was used to the political business, which is a lot more honest, as she will tell you, than the music business, which really says a lot. Music business.
I'm not so sure that's true anymore, but it was when I started.
It was before the craziness of now. But anyway, everything goes in cycles, and we definitely, we can get into this too, but we definitely have very different ways, and it's hard, I think, for her sometimes. I own 51% of it. She owns 49%. That's the split, but she's very powerful, and in the years that I listened to her, some really amazing things have happened. But I think we're continually finding our ground.
Yeah, that's true. It's funny because when after we'd been together, I guess 5 or 6 years, Sonia said, you've put as much into this business model as selling the merchandise and all of that as I have, and I want to make this a 50-50 split. And I said, absolutely no way. I truthfully didn't think I deserved anything because the reality is it's Sonia's music and Sonia who is the entity. And as far as I'm concerned, and she really felt strongly about it. And I insisted on then, if we were going to do that, it had to be 51% for her, because as far as I'm concerned, no one should ever own her music. I mean, if I had my way, we would buy her back from Warner Chappell and Rounder and everybody else, because I feel strongly that musicians should own their own things. And while I own a percentage of the business as far as merchandising and all that, her music is always 1,000% hers, and will always be there as long as I'm alive to protect it. But it's definitely a different kind of business, because there's there's her publishing, there's her writing, there's her performer, and then there's merchandising. And without merchandising, you can't live. But Sonia used to have in her contract that she couldn't see the merchandise. She didn't want to think about selling her music. If it had been up to her, she'd have given it away. And so I had to make her realize that even Madonna pitches her CD on the Late Show. So one night we were watching late night TV and I said, look, Madonna's telling people to go out and buy her CD. If Madonna can do it, you certainly can ask people to buy your CD. But, I have a hard
That's
time.
right. Model some other, super powerful performers.
But she won't. I mean, she's horrible about even saying it from the stage.
I write it down.
I get it. Right. I get it. Right. So I'm going to talk a little bit about, because I know, Terry, that you have a legal background. Intellectual property
Right.
is such a big thing for attorneys, really, to help business owners in general, whether you're an artist or a graphic artist, a musician, or a ski instructor. If you have special sauce and that's your intellectual property, you need to protect it. And I think that has really probably been an interesting mix to add to this very creative universe that is Disappear Fear,
Yeah,
right?
it's really it's fascinating because it's we ran into quite a bit of PR nightmare situation in the last 20 years, because when Sonia was starting, if she decided to, when she went solo after being with Disappear Fear for so long, Rounder made it Sonia of Disappear Fear. And then, which rightfully so, they always wanted to keep the Disappear Fear name in there. I think they would have been better off to never add the Sonia. But once she started winning awards as Sonia, then it became, Sonia was more important than Disappear Fear there for a while. And so then she wanted to bring a band back, and she wanted to once again put Sonia and Disappear Fear. And then it was Sonia ampersand. And for her, it was just graphically whatever looked better for that particular album. The problem is that once you get it out there on the internet and the metadata is there, it became a nightmare, because if you bought Disappear Fear, they might tell you to buy the Indigo Girls or the Story, but they wouldn't tell you to buy Sonia. And if you bought Sonia, they would tell you to buy Bruce Springsteen or Ani DeFranco or, even, Taylor Swift maybe, but they wouldn't tell you to buy Disappear Fear. So it was like, getting them to cross-reference it became a real nightmare situation. And we actually ended up having to take things down and pay to relist them in order to get them to combine them. Because fans were searching for an album and they'd say, we can't find it anywhere. And it's because it was under Sonia ampersand instead of Sonia and. So she is an absolute PR nightmare because artistically she wants to do what she wants to do. And God forbid you tell her, no, you can't
be our nightmare anymore. It's a bad shoe.
That's true. I'm not Halloween's coming, so I'll take it.
Part of this
PR challenge.
This is so beautiful because you guys really know your business. Terry, you've looked at those, what I'm going to call KPIs, which is just business speak, right? Those key performance indicators, which is how are albums moving, and you are really aware of what is happening with your merchandise. And that is a beautiful thing. And it translates across other types of businesses, and I love that you know that with so much precision and that you have activated yourself to correct this.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's still not easy. I mean, it's like every little thing. But I do, it's like now when I speak at a conference or any kind of music conference or Folk Alliance or any of those things, I really tell young artists, be very aware of your branding. And be very aware of what, it may sound artistic to change something, but it's not. Once you have that brand, it's your brand and live into it, but you really have to think about it before you change it. Because you set yourself.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I wouldn't have thought that would be something. So do you get paid for these speaking gigs? I'm just curious.
I actually have been paid for them, and I have donated them for things that I really believe. And anytime a young artist, I give my card out. I don't know.
She gives away her intellectual property all the time. If I had $1 for every artist she's helped, or $100 for every artist.
So Sonia's really good about telling everybody that if she had $1 for every time somebody has said, I need a Terry, she'd be really, really wealthy.
You would be richer.
Well, there's a way to monetize that.
Probably.
I know, but she won't. Her heart's bigger than her intellectual property.
That is the thing, right? You know legally that you have this intellectual property floating around in there.
Well, the thing is, it's just funny because if it's an artist that I know financially can afford to hire me, I'm not opposed to getting paid, but I also know that there's sometimes that I believe so strongly in an artist that I would do it for free in a minute because I just know that they need to be out there. And I mean, when I went to work with Sonia originally, I mean, I was only going to do it for a year, and just to help her get back on track. And she was between managers, and it really never intended to be a full-time gig. I mean, this was going to be, her label wanted somebody to go to Europe with her, and I was going to do this one tour, and I thought it'd be fun. We had just started dating. Let's go to Europe together. And 26 years later, my parents finally stopped asking when I was going back to work.
I was thinking. I was going to say, somebody brought the U-Haul along.
Well, I asked her, I told her once, I said, if I work with you, then we can't be together. And she said,
but there, okay, that is all true. But here is the globe. This is a visual. The best places on earth to snorkel. This is how Terry runs my career. Now, some people might say, go to Nashville, go to LA, go to New York. No, we go to the Great Barrier Reef. We go to Eilat. You go to, anyway, no, it's fabulous. But I mean, I did say that because now we're in Europe a whole lot more, and Germany doesn't not have snorkeling for sure, at least not the kind you're thinking of. But but there are things that we've.
I asked her when we got together, because I didn't think we should be together and work together, and she said, "Well, it's actually easier to find a good girlfriend than a manager." And I was like, "Thanks a lot," And so yeah. So
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, very persuasive. Very persuasive. Proud of you.
So it was a U-Haul with an office.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what it was.
She'll tell you that she basically just wanted to make sure that my focus was completely on her. So it's like, okay.
I haven't heard the story really. I mean, we were there for a little
Yes,
window.
you were there at the very beginning. Yeah.
Yeah, we were there for a little window of it, and we were happy to see it unfold for both of you, and we're happy, so happy that so many years later that you're still, figuring out that dynamic.
Well, and that's how I feel about seeing you guys still working together and being together. That's cool, because I remember when you were just starting to do some video stuff together, and and Piper, you were still out on the music scene. And that's the thing, is when I first started working with Sonia, I was still producing events, and Disappear Fear was one of the bands, as was Kid Sister, that performed for me. So it's like, I knew it from that side of the music business. I just always believed that every promoter treated every artist the way that I did, and that if they told you something was in a contract, that's how it was done. And I was shocked to find out when I went to work with Sonia that, we'd show up and the hotel was supposed to be prepaid and it wasn't. And, or the promoter after the gig would say, we've had kind of a rough month. Could we negotiate? I was just shocked because I didn't think that that's how things were. And Sonia said, "Welcome to the music business." And I was like, this is worse than politicians, because politicians, you have a hard time getting them to say yes. But once they do, they usually do keep their word on it. Not anymore, but in the old days, and I was shocked because in the music business, it's not that way, because they know that musicians are not going to sue a venue because they don't want to shoot themselves in the foot. And it's just really horrible to see how musicians get taken advantage of.
Right. And so that leads me to the idea that, you're an ethical and sort of attentive business person, Terry, which meant that when you put together your events, that you were actually working along some business ethics, right? So you're treating them as if they were professionals, musicians, and then you weren't treating them like, oh, it's just something I could get for free, right? If I just sweet talk and kick the dirt around and then promise to bring them back, right? So that's not the MO that most businesses operate under. So good on you for treating folks with respect.
Well, and the thing is like, I mean, I did have events where I asked performers to perform for free. But if I did, I always made sure they had great sound. I always made sure that I tried to get them a paid gig in the area as well. And I made sure I publicized them, because one of the things about all of these big prides is I can really make a performer's career. If I can put them in front of 300,000 people like I did in Atlanta, I can really do a great thing for them. But if I put them in front of 300,000 people and the sound sucks, I can also kill them, because I've now shown the world that, and the world's going to think they sucked, and it might have nothing to do with them. And so I was really, really heavy on, making sure the sound was good, the production was great, and that I publicized them, because you owe a performer that. And one of my pet peeves is prides that hire straight performers who supposedly are allies, but make money off of our community, but don't give to our community. And yet the very ones that we ask to raise the money for our community, we don't hire for the big events. We finally get the money to have a big event, and we don't bring in the gay performers who built us. We bring in divas, and it really ticks me off, and still to this day, it's one of my biggest pet peeves.
So it sounds like you need to run the workshop, how to put on like the badass pride event.
Yeah.
Right? Just, and that way, you can express what you want and get for the community what you think they deserve, right? So it sounds like a workshop in the making.
Yeah.
It does.
And so you guys, the 5149, like I did some preliminary research. I noticed that most couples, they don't have a formalized meeting or business strategy. Do you guys sit down in a formal way and talk about like the future of the business?
Not as much as we should. We have at times, and in fact, we have a meeting this afternoon, but we don't do it as strictly as we should. Sonia, if it, like I said, I went into this with a temporary mindset. I really intended to find a better music manager for her. And in a lot of ways, I don't think that I have been the best thing for Disappear Fear and Sonia and what she wanted to accomplish. Because, I mean, you guys are well aware of what they did for the community and how strong they were. And I'm not sure I took her around the world, but I'm not sure I really progressed her as well as a music manager could have. Do I think personally I've been good for her, maybe health-wise and stuff? Yes, but I think she'd be 10 times the artist out there in the world that she is if she'd had a real music manager versus me.
I don't think she says that, but I think, okay. So at some point in everybody's life, and I think maybe you guys think this too, you may have different ideas business-wise, and you may have different ideas relationship-wise, but there's like a bowl that holds one or the other, or like my bowl is made of our relationship, and in that bowl is our work together. So do I think some of that's true? Yeah, but my bowl is our relationship. So what occurs to me in the music business is not gonna make or break that bowl. And that's just how I hold, how I feel about it. Because I think that if I I wanted Terry's attention. I wanted like this focused on my life, and because when she's working on something, she is Virgo and she is 1,000% in it. And I wanted that. And the price of that is, all the other passion, and not when you said you were in it temporarily. You were in it temperamentally, continually, because she has a definite temperament. That's difficult. I mean, like there has been a time when like I had this show in Sweden, and I was playing after ABBA. Okay, Sweden and ABBA.
She fired me.
It wasn't the real ABBA, but it was like the best national global touring band of ABBA, like with the same outfits, the same wigs, in the town Stockholm that launched ABBA. So like I was a little nervous, like understandably so, but I did do the gig. It worked out great, and that was back in like
she fired
99
me 4 times that day, and I said, you can only fire somebody once because you haven't hired me back.
I haven't fired Piper in a while.
It's been at least a month.
So,
I think.
yeah,
I think I haven't been fired this month. though the month isn't over. Yet.
Ultimately, that doesn't sound like a fireable offense. Being, opening.
Well, she told me when we got there for sound check. She said, "Terry,
no, ABBA was opening for me."
Yes, she was the headliner.
I was the headliner,
and she said,
"I can't play after ABBA."
That's even
better. I had legitimate concerns. Come on, I'm not.
Yes, she said, she goes, "Terry, this is insane." She goes, "You need to go to the promoter and tell them they need to change the production order." And I said, "I'm not going to do that." I said,
I was solo with my guitar. Okay?
I said, "You have been
After
listed all over the city as the headliner for this event. And you really want me to go to them and say, I know you think you hired this international artist, but she doesn't think she's big enough." And she said, "Yes." And I said, "You're out of your mind."
It was your pride.
I said, "You are the headliner and you'll be fine." They knew what they hired. And she said, "Terry, it's ABBA in Sweden." And I said, "Who cares?" So my feeling was, but you know what? The producer knew exactly what he was doing. Yeah. After they did their third encore, which also made her even more nervous, he dimmed all the lights and he set off all this colored smoke. And then he had
it was smoke, but he had lights on it.
Yeah,
so it looked
and
like
it was so cool.
Came through it. Yeah,
and he had really to come out through it.
Production.
And it was,
I had a share moment.
Everybody
awesome.
forgot about them in 2 seconds. So, she was fine. She did great. In fact, she got so many encores, they actually had to shut down the stage because time was running over. And so she ended up unplugging her guitar and jumping into the audience.
Which was like 8 feet, which I didn't really realize the stage was that high. But
thank God they
I was just hugging people. It was just total love fest. It was.
So she was fine, but I did get fired 4 times that night.
Anyway,
that's awesome. One of my questions was going to be share a best moment. And now let's talk about, and you talked a little bit about, sort of like less successful moments in the business relationship. So do you have something that comes to mind that you'd be willing to share with us?
Less successful or more successful?
I'm not going to call it
less.
Oh.
Less successful.
Like when she got out of the car in the New Jersey Turnpike. And she was like walking, and I'm like, you can't walk on the New Jersey Turnpike on the opposite direction. Or the time she got out of the car in New York, and there were 6 lanes of traffic coming towards us because I was giving her directions, and she was like, "Stop giving me directions. If you think you can do this better." And she literally got out of the car.
She gave me directions, and we turned the wrong way on the circle by Hudson.
Yeah, the Park Slope.
And
then
so I was facing 4 lanes of traffic going the wrong direction in New York City.
In Brooklyn.
And I just stopped. No, it was by the wetlands. That's in Manhattan. I stopped the car and I said, "You drive then." And she goes, "Terry, you can't just stop here." All the traffic stopped. It was amazing. I shut down New York City.
And it was like,
I was not getting back to the wheel.
You had to turn around.
Or the time she would drive me to New York and she wasn't driving me. She fell asleep. And then that was the problem. Like whenever she would fall asleep, I would fall asleep. And I fell asleep. And I almost
She wrecked the car.
I did wreck the car. We were okay though. But
less successful. Glad you made it safe out of those situations. But it's very entertaining stories.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you sharing that with us.
There was some business stuff though. Like early on in Sonia's career, she actually had promoters that decided one night that $500 was enough for two little girls, her and her sister, even though the agreement had been the door and it had been a lot more than that. But, those kinds of things. She actually, and went to the sheriff's department and they wouldn't help her. So, yeah.
Oh yeah, I've lots of those.
Yeah.
Yeah, having those contracts and having somebody, doing business is at any level, there have been, contracts that we had that we didn't get paid. It's like, oh, well,
Yeah, and
they
do
skipped
you
town
go to
and their
court?
name is Mud.
Yeah, exactly. And do you go to court and tie up so much more of your time and energy? And there are times where even if it was for $2, I would, just because they're jerks. But most of the time, it's just like, you know what? We have a great life, and we have more important things to do with it than, sit there and try to, get somebody to do the right thing. It's their karma that they have to live with. So,
Right. Well, some of the things that we were looking at is, that formal, discussion about business. It's hard for us because, you live together and you spend so much time when you're doing the task of the business, right? That, having those formal meetings, sometimes you put it on the calendar and then sometimes you don't, right? And then you're like trying to, make these decisions, I'm 51%. So like a lot of times I don't put what's in my head down for Piper to know that's the direction we're going in.
My mind reading is not working at that moment.
Right.
Or
And
whatever.
so, if you weren't a couple, that's probably not how you'd run it.
yeah, that's true. Absolutely. It'd be a lot different structure if we weren't.
There are a lot of decisions that we've made. The couple thing so comes into it. And I would say a big part of that is Germany. We were in Germany for 3 months last year. And there's no way, if I wasn't married to Terry, that I would have been in Germany away from my wife for 3 months. That's not going to happen. So we're able to, as far as touring the world, we're able to do that. I was in another life, it seems like another lifetime earlier in my career, involved, my partner, my girlfriend, was at first kind of like our tour manager. And then when we had the band, she didn't want to be our tour manager. So she was like, so it was more like talk for as much as we can in the morning and talk as much as we can at night. But we were in different parts of the country and of the US. And, it was challenging, because I would have like such a good time somewhere. And I'm like, you got to come to Charlottesville. It's so cool. They have the best restaurant. They did this, and that not only did that not happen later, but life goes on. And so with, it's so precious that we have this, this time together that I can make decisions of like, yeah, let's go here, and also to accommodate Terry. Terry frequently will work for the Olympics. We took off time for her to do that in Australia. There's more Olympics coming up, and there's things that that we've been able to negotiate for her priorities, particularly more lately when we're coming back from something, a big birthday for her mom or someone else in the family, or just things like that. Because as you get older, those things, I guess, become more important. You're so like, when you're in your 20s and 30s, you like kind of, maybe, I don't want to say this directly, but you sort of must throw away your family a little bit. Oh, they're going to be here forever. And then you realize they're not actually going to be here forever. And every moment's so important. So you get to that, those priorities, that's part of the cycle. So that's, that shifts.
And one of the things that happened when I got involved with Sonia is I gave up producing Prides. I had done it for years. And I gave that up because I was on the road with her and it really was difficult to be, promoting. And then International Disappear Fear Day has grown and grown and grown exponentially over the last 30 years. And it really became a big human rights gathering, and especially virtually. And I noticed that the backlash against gays, LGBT, all this work that I had done all those years ago, that I thought we had made such huge progress in, all of a sudden seemed to be slipping away. And so a couple of years ago, we made the decision to link International Disappear Day with the International Pride Coordinators, and to really try to make sure that we knew what was going on again, because I felt like I just kind of took for granted that we'd made so many strides that it could never go away. And I have to say, I'm embarrassed to say that, because I now am back involved with prides and stuff, because I just feel like, what happened? How did this happen? How did we lose so much ground after we had gained so much ground? I mean, I really loved the fact that we had added recycling to prides, that we had added interpreters, that we had Braille guides available, that we had become a human rights event. And slowly but surely, I've noticed that the backlash from the community, from the far right and others, not just them, has gotten so atrocious. And part of it is that we got slack about really promoting the human rights aspects of our own community too. We went back to the big party things. We started taking for granted the very growth that we had made in our own events. And I think we need to take stock of that. I think we need to own the responsibility of our own misactions too. So I want to see more movement. I really want to see that movement towards prides being human rights events again.
That's awesome. What I love about you two is that there's this overlap in such a deep and meaningful way about your values and your commitment to our community, and to be inclusive.
Well,
and just sort of,
it's way bigger than us.
Yeah.
It's way bigger than us, right? It's going to be way after us. It's been way before us. We're just little pieces in it, but tasty pieces.
Yeah, and when when the state of Maryland last year recognized International Disappear Day officially and made a resolution that on February 18th is International Disappear Day, it was such a huge thing for our state to do, and it meant so much, because I've watched this one give so much of herself over the years and really be about inclusivity and disappearing fear amongst people. And so for our state to recognize this, and the very week that our state was recognizing International Disappear Day, just a couple states away in Tennessee, they were passing bills that took away people's rights. And trans and drag queens. I mean, come on. It's like, since when did a drag performer become this dangerous, offensive person? And so it really, really woke me up to the fact that, you can't ignore it, and you can't take it for granted. And I'm hopeful that the young ones, understand that every aspect of the work you do is precious and important.
Amen. I agree. I mean, I'm glad that there are folks like you out there fighting really hard. If you were approached by a couple that looked like y'all, where it's like, hey, should we go into business together? What kind of advice would you give?
Run! I'm sorry. We should be serious. What kind of advice? Okay, for myself, to see a little Sonia out there, my advice, and my advice even this afternoon when we meet later, speak and listen, is for me to listen and process. And I think our biggest battleground, or our biggest enemy, is anxiety. Like, I'm so who I am. I'm so my music and my art, and so I feel also like that I have too much information, because sometimes I'll say to Terry, as my wife, I got to talk to you as my wife because my manager's driving me insane. or vice versa. And we'll role play that way. And just to be able to speak to her like she's not my manager, she's just my wife. That's really, really important because she has a different listening to it too. Because she kind of like puts on, like, why is she doing that to you? You know, I mean, it's sort of like
I tell her to fire her manager all the time.
She has said that.
And as her manager, I tell her she can't afford a divorce when she wants to bitch about her wife.
So I don't really bitch about my wife that much to her. I'm just me. But anyway, that's what I would say. I would say for me as a human being, listen. Terry's a very good listener, and it's very unarming or disarming and frustrating when we're having a tiff because she can say back verbatim, like, I didn't say that. Like, yes, you did. It was, I don't know if your ways go that way or whoever else is watching this, but yeah, I would say for me, for little Sonia, I would say listen and be as clear as you can because she is listening.
For me, I would say really, really, really live by the no horizontal rule, which is you don't talk business once you lay down to go to sleep at night, you know, because it's really hard to do. If you're going to be in business together, Sonia's grandmother, when I first started dating Sonia's grandmother, who I had known before because we were friends already, said, so you're going to work with Sonia? And I said, yeah. And she said, you know, that's going to ruin your sex life. And I went, and I was horrified, you know, but she was so red. And I was like, well, at least I know she takes it as serious as any other relationship.
We'd only been dating like 2 weeks or something. And my grandmother was like, are you married?
Yeah. It was so funny though.
I mean,
she was so serious. I mean, she was like 85 years old and she was so serious. And she goes, you know, though. And I was like, God. But, you know, I will say that that's the biggest thing is that you have to consciously make time for your relationship if you're going to be in business together. And it's really hard to do. We've only had 3 vacations in our life where we've actually left the phone and computers off, you know, in 26 years. And we actually, our honeymoon, only time we turned on a phone was to call our nephew to wish him a happy 18th birthday. The rest of the time, it didn't come back on until we checked in for our flight home. And her 50th birthday. And then one other time she was off her phone for a week because she left her phone at home. So, but that's it. I mean, and seriously,
that wasn't a vacation.
Consciously, though, yeah, that was actually a conference. But consciously, only 2 vacations in 26 years where you don't do any work or phone is not good. It's actually really not good. I mean, we have days, and she 1 day a week takes Shabbat and actually from sunset to sunset turns her phone off unless he absolutely has to have it on. But which is healthy too, and I highly recommend it. Not just for the environment, but it's also healthy for your mind. But I would say definitely pay attention to that because if you're going to work together, your relationship is going to be what suffers, and ultimately that will make your business suffer. So definitely make time.
Great advice. Great advice. Great advice. All those things. So I don't think I have any more questions, so we'll just
thank you so much for having us.
Yeah,
it was great to see you.
We want to thank our friends Sonia and Terry for joining us on the show today. Check out the SoniaDisappearFear.com website where you can purchase Sonia's music, find cool stuff to buy, and learn about concerts and projects. Key Piqued Interest, KPI, Entrepreneurial Insight LGBTQ Editions. Hey y'all, I'm Piper.
I'm Monique. As a woman and minority-owned business, we're interested in talking to couples that look like us. Lesbian couples in a service business. That's why this podcast exists. I've been looking for a queer business podcast that showcased LGBTQ and BIPOC owners. Found a few in each category, but none that mixed the two, so we created Key Piqued Interest Podcast. This show is looking to honestly connect with other successful LGBTQ couples in business.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. We're open to nominations, introductions, and suggestions for guests.
Hit us up in the comments, and thanks for watching. And listening.
Thanks. Join us for a special 3-night retreat designed for lesbian couples running a business who are ready to level up and create new wealth in their current business. The retreat will be held at a beautiful beach venue in Oak Island, North Carolina. On the first night, we'll have a relaxing dinner and cocktail social, along with an introduction to daily habits you'll be starting. The next 2 days, we'll walk through creating more time and space to level up in your business. Lean into your strengths as a couple to fuel your $1 million business model. Focus on your vision, mindset, and more. We've built in time for walks on the beach and plenty of moments to enjoy the saltwater air. Walk away with $1 million plan for your business that features understanding of your personal genius, a custom offer that is scalable, and new connections with other business owners that understand your life. The cost per couple is $10,000. We look forward to seeing you there.